Exploration Association, I should say APIA, today released a detailed report it commissioned, which argues that any price cap will have negative long-term impacts on our economy. In fact, it says it could make things a whole bunch worse. The author of that report is Graeme, the Chief Executive of EnergyQuest, who joins me now. Graeme, I'll just take one easy quote here. A price cap in Australia of $10 per gigajoule would risk capital flight to countries which offer a faster and higher return on investment. Is that how serious it is?
Yes, yeah, it certainly is, Ross. I mean, lots of overseas companies have invested in Australia in the belief that we're a low sovereign risk country, and we honour the agreements we make. And if we start to cast doubt about that, then they'll be less likely to invest here. And we are highly reliant on overseas capital to invest in oil and gas, as we are in many other areas.
But you argue in this paper that the real solution, which government is not prepared to go to, is to actually create more gas here in Australia on the East Coast. It's there. The reality is that many of these politicians simply don't have the cojones, if I call it that, to be able to go and get it out.
Yes, that's completely right, Ross. I mean, what we've got here is a kind of long-running train wreck, or a slow train wreck. Gas investment is a long-term business. If you start putting blockages or stuff-ups in the supply train, that inevitably you see the results of that down the track, and that's what we're starting to see now. And it's not only gas itself, it's also closely related to what's happening in the electricity sector too. So if you have coal-fired power stations closing down faster than renewables can ramp up to replace them, then again that creates enormous pressures on gas as the only form of energy that can step in and fill the gap.
Okay, so if you put that cap, let's call it $10 per gigajoule, and we've also heard here it could be potentially 10, 11, something of that nature, higher than the price that currently the gas companies are getting if they do sell it on contract, but probably less than what they're getting on the spot market. But the suggestion is that that price cap could also create a disincentive to even put in import terminals to bring gas from Western Australia, from other parts of the country, that it really then creates, again, the potential of shortages down the track.
Oh, it certainly does. So, I mean, it means there's a strong disincentive to develop emergency LNG import terminals. So there have been, the companies have been working hard, AGL being one and Viva Energy being another, to get import terminals in place in case they're needed. But with a price cap, it would be very difficult to do that. Also, AGL, after spending $100 million in Victoria, had their project knocked off by the Victorian government. Another element is also supply storage. Victoria is highly reliant on gas storage for the winter peak. One of the incentives to put gas in storage is the expectation that you'll get a higher price a few months later. But if there's a price cap, again, there's no incentive to put gas into storage.
Okay, you talked about the exploration piece. Given the fact that you have had, these very high prices for gas over the last period of time, what has that done to the exploration activity around Australia for hydrocarbons and particularly for gas? Ironically, exploration in Australia and in many other parts of the world is in the doldrums, really. So prices are high. And so normally you'd expect an increase in exploration, but the whole conversation has been that oil and gas won't be needed in the long term. So you shouldn't go and develop it or look for it. So as a result, companies aren't putting money into exploration. So there's no exploration. A price cap would also create a disincentive to bring more gas into the markets.
Yeah.
So in other words, the shortages of gas would go on. In short, that's it.
Yeah, slow train wreck.
Tell you what, Graeme Bethune from EnergyQuest, always good to chat to you. Many thanks for your time today.
Good, thanks, Ross.